2 games apiece behind Al Horford and Jason Tatum, each scoring 30 points. Horford and Tatum became just the third pair of Celtics teammates with 30 points each in playoff games over the last 30 seasons. Horford said Giannis Antetokounmpo's stare fired him up, seemed a little personal, so he responded by setting a personal playoff record. Take a listen.
I don't really know what he said to me, but the way he was looking at me and the way that he was going about it really didn't sit well with me. And at that point, I think just something switched with me in the game.
At the end of the day, like, I know what the deal is. The team knows what the deal is. We got to go to Boston and try to win a game. Now, no matter what I feel, it doesn't really matter. Emotions are for movies, not for basketball.
I love that.
I like that line.
I love
That's a
this
good
guy.
line.
Emotions are for movies. Yeah,
and some commercials, by the way. Some
yeah, absolutely. So at times, fellas, it feels like Giannis has to do it all, especially with Chris Middleton sidelined with the MCL. Are the Bucks, JJ, asking too much of Giannis not having Middleton out there?
They really have no choice. They really have no choice. This is the issue you have without Chris Middleton. And we talked about this earlier today with Mike Greenberg. Their closing play is a 3-5 side pick and roll with Chris Middleton and Giannis, or a dribble handoff on that left side with Giannis and Chris Middleton. That's what they ran all last playoffs to beat the Nets, to win the Eastern Conference against the Atlanta Hawks, and to win in the finals against the Phoenix Suns. You're missing that right now. So much of the offense has to be generated by Giannis. And he's been in all sorts of different positions, and he's going against a loaded defense. Look, Drew Holiday is one of my dear friends. He is better suited in that third role on offense than he is in the second role. He's really struggled this series. As great as he's been defensively and as great as Wes Matthews have been defensively, there's just no one on their team with Drew struggles like this that can generate good offense. And that's not a knock. Like, Pat Connaughton has played really well this series. Bobby Portis has had some moments. Like, they have good role players. But for generating offense, it's Giannis and Giannis alone right now. And that's a real problem. And I think over the next, we talked about Toll earlier, over the next 3 games, with 2 of those games in Boston, you're asking a lot of Giannis, which is why I think the Celtics are going to win the series.
2-2. Drew Holiday hasn't really injected himself into this series offensively at all. And the other guy, you mentioned Portis, and you said his name, and I'm thinking to myself, that's not a casual thing. This is a guy that averaged 15 points a game in the previous 5. He's critical. So people might think of Bobby Portis as a role player. Mm-hmm. Number one, he is by far the number one guy in terms of energizing their team. And I've said it for the last 2 seasons. 1 basket out of Bobby Portis is worth 4 for most guys.
That's right.
Because of the way that their team and in that building reacts to him. He's been a non-factor the last 2 games. He needs to reemerge in this series. He's too important, and particularly without Middleton. Holiday can't play worse offensively right now. He hasn't injected himself, and despite all of that, they had a 12-point lead in the third quarter last night. I still have a lot of faith in Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think the question was, are they asking too much? No. Heavy lies the head that wears the crown. This is what you ask of guys this good, right? And you don't have Middleton. This is what you expect Giannis to do and what I expect him to be. I expect Giannis Antetokounmpo to be the best player on the floor the remainder of this series and give the Milwaukee Bucks a chance to win it. And I picked them to win it. I picked them to get to the finals. I am sticking with that pick.
I think Giannis can very well be the best player on the floor and it still not be enough. But I'm not going to blame it on Middleton's absence, to be quite honest with you. I'm of the mindset that, Boston's defense is what it is. Middleton would be something to deal with. I get all of that. Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton, you expected to make a bigger contribution based on what you saw from them in the first round. But I think that the Milwaukee Bucks have enough pieces to make this interesting. I will remind everybody they had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. It's not like Boston has run away with it because Middleton was out there. So I'm saying that the point is you have shown an ability to do some of the things you normally do even without Middleton. But to me, if you've got an Al Horford dropping 30, you ain't winning. You ain't losing to anybody if you're the Boston Celtics. You certainly don't anticipate that. You know what Tatum can do. You know what Jaylen Brown can do. The question is what they're going to do consistently. But when you've got somebody like Al Horford doing what he's doing, then guess what? That doesn't really have much to do with the absence of a Middleton. Again, he's significant, and I'm not trying to downplay that by any stretch of the imagination. But the point is, you can't have somebody like Al Horford making the kind of contribution he was able to make last night. If that happens, I don't give a damn what Milwaukee has. They ain't beating Boston.
Yeah, so I just want a couple comments to that. So you mentioned the fourth quarter lead. And again, goes back to what I was saying earlier about closing games. They need Middleton to close games because if Giannis going against a set defense for first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, you need someone else to create offense for you down at the end of the game. And Giannis can do it. I'm not saying he can't do it. We saw that at the end of game 3. He scored a bucket. Drew got Tatum to fall. He made the floater. But with Drew struggling the way he does, this is where they miss Chris Middleton. I also wanted to mention, you said Pat Connaughton has been phenomenal in this series. He's been phenomenal.
He's got 11 points.
He's a spot-up shooter, a good defender, a good rebounder.
Absolutely.
For what his role is, he's been phenomenal. Okay. The thing you brought up about Horford, they've got to figure out what they're going to do when he picks and pops. Because right now, they're staying in basically a drop coverage. They're throwing it back to Horford. And as we saw on that dunk, Giannis has now got to close out onto him. He's knocking down jumpers. He's taking him off the dribble. I don't understand why they're not switching that. Giannis is more than capable, whether it's Tatum or Brown or whomever, Giannis is more than capable of switching that pick and roll. Then you rely on your secondary defenders, size and strength to deal with Horford if he goes to the post. They've got to make that adjustment.
Massive adjustment there. And also, I just did a touchscreen on this because I looked at their late game execution offensively. They had possessions from an 85-85 standpoint the rest of the game. Their spacing was so poor at the start of the play. Part of it was because Giannis was gassed, and he was kind of camped out in the corner a little bit. But there were possessions where they had 8 players on one side of the floor, nobody in the strong side corner for a Giannis drive or a Drew Holiday drive. No bailout pass waiting for help. You're playing into the hands of an elite Boston Celtics team. That's the kind of thing that a smart mind like Mike Budenholzer is going to look at, and they're going to be better in late game, just making sure they've got threats in the right spot to give Giannis more room to operate. He had people in his last. Now, part of it he was tired. Part of it was the way they were set up offensively.
Yeah. But let me go hold on. Let me just throw this by y'all a second. I'm not. What I'm saying about the Boston Celtics, and this is what I want you to understand, JJ. When you look at the Boston Celtics, they seem to find a way to be there when it counts. So my assumption, and I'll admit it is an assumption, but I think an educated one, that even if Middleton was in the lineup, it would come down to the wire. That's why I point to what Al Horford did as opposed to what Middleton couldn't do because he wasn't in the lineup. I'm saying I know that Middleton is obviously an upgrade from a Grayson Allen, don't get me wrong. And you're right about Pat Connaughton, and you're right about Bobby Portis and how he needs to step up. But somehow, some way, when we've watched the Boston Celtics for 3 quarters, the last 3 quarters of this season, when they've been one of the best teams in the NBA, what they've said to you is we're going to be there. And if they're going to be there, and you got a guy like Al Horford coming, doing what he did, that is something that I don't give a damn what Milwaukee has going for them. You got to make sure that can't happen. We expect Tatum. We expect Brown. One or the other, if not both, like they did in Game 2. But in the end, if you let somebody like Horford or Marcus Smart or somebody like that get off like Horford got off last night, you're not beating this team if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, Stephen, I know you watch the games, and I've done games with you. I did one of the Brooklyn Boston games with you. You can't act like you're surprised that Al Horford has a big game. He's been phenomenal in these playoffs. He's been phenomenal.
Hold on.
Yeah, he went 6 for 6 in the quarter, and he had 30.
I understand that. I'm not saying
he's been phenomenal.
I love Al Horford.
He's been great.
He's a glue. He's a glue piece, a veteran. He plays on both ends of the floor. He can hit open shots. I'm very familiar with Al Horford's game. What I'm saying is 30 is 30, bro. I mean, damn. Come on now.
You can't account for that if you're Milwaukee.
You can't account for that.
It's a playoff record for him last
He's had multiple games over 20. Like it's not like he's all of a sudden he's not like an 8-6 guy that's a role player.
No, but he's not
a really good basketball
player. He's not a 30-point guy. He's not hitting 6 for 6 in the fourth quarter. He's not scoring 16 points in the fourth quarter.
I want to say one other thing.
That's what I'm saying.
I want to say one other thing to the Middleton point.
Sure.
While Legs was talking, they were showing clips of Giannis, again, dribbling the ball at the top of the key, going against 3 guys in his face, loaded up. When they run those plays with Middleton, I don't want to harp on this, but when they run those plays with Middleton, what happens? Giannis is catching the ball on the move, going downhill, putting pressure on the rim. He's able to finish. He's able to dish. Middleton is able to pull up. That is what they are missing right now. They are missing that in the fourth quarter. So Giannis can be great for as long as you want, but when they get to crunch time, they need Chris Middleton.
Yeah, okay. All right.
All right. So Who are you taking now? You're staying with the Bucks.
Oh, yeah,
Tell
I'm
us
staying with
why.
the Bucks. I stay because if I pick a team, I'm staying with that team.
Okay.
Yeah, they are
Ride or die?
Is that a
Till the wheels
subtweet
come
at me?
off?
It's a 2-2
Okay.
series. My goodness. Yeah, I'm sticking with the
Wow.
Milwaukee Bucks. I'm banking on that man right there, number 34.
Is he the most mentally tough player in the NBA,
He had
by
a
the way?
psychological breakthrough last year. I mean, he's past that hurdle. No moment's going to be too big for Giannis. I am a little
feels that
concerned.
way.
I am a little concerned.
Yeah.
He looks like he's got the yips a little bit at the foul line again. I am concerned about that. It didn't look good last night. He didn't look sure of himself.
Yeah.
But what he did last year and the barrier he broke through after past playoff failures, I'm just banking on his greatness and his mental toughness.
Yeah, no one handles the media better than him right now.
Giannis is great. Giannis is going to get his. He's one of the great ones. There is no doubt about it. But 2 impediments potentially to his success: perimeter shooting and free throw shooting. We all know this to be true. It's not that he can't make them. It's that more often than not he doesn't. And when you look at a series like this, could something like that deficiency come back to bite you? You're damn right.
Did you both pick Boston?
I picked Boston
And
in
you're
7.
Are you
Both
staying with
I
it?
picked Boston. Yeah, I'm staying with it.
Okay.
I wavered because I said my pick was whoever wins this series is going to the finals.
Okay.
But after yesterday, I will be definitive, and I will say I think the Celtics are going to win. And by the way,
Well,
I'm a
just so
Giannis
proud.
believer.
I'm just
a
so proud of
Giannis
you.
believer.
All right.
I remember you knocking Giannis early in the season,
Yes,
talking
that's
about
right.
how he can't finish
Wait a
games.
second. Am I?
No, hold on.
Listen,
I didn't say he can't
Wait,
finish.
there's a lot happening
my
right
dear
now.
friend,
I
did
never
you
I'm
said
not
that.
doubting
Am I
Giannis.
hearing,
I'm
am I
saying
hearing what you just said, Craig?
Celtics
You're
will win.
saying, but you're saying you didn't definitively come to that conclusion until they make a comeback in the fourth quarter of Game 4, and now you're willing to say Boston because they got 2 out of 3 at home? You didn't say that before the series, that you thought definitively they would win the series?
Well,
How did you avoid that, by the way?
hold on a
Because that's
second. Hold
something
on a
that you do
second.
around here.
I've said
Explain yourself.
I've
They don't let you do
Explain
that
yourself.
around here.
You asked me this last week, and I'll tell you the same answer. For months,
Right.
I've said,
All right.
finals rematch. We got Suns-Bucks finals rematch,
Yeah.
and then Middleton gets hurt.
Okay.
So now I'm trying to assess the
I got
Bucks in
you.
real
Okay.
time. You got to give me at least a
right.
couple
No, I hear
games
you.
to do
But
that.
around here,
You got to
that's
give me a
fair.
couple
We'll give
games
you
to
that.
do
We'll
that.
give you
Here, they make you
weren't
pick
brought
on
it
a
up.
daily
I've
I
said
know
Suns
that. They
Bucks
make you pick
since
it.
January.
That's true. You got to pick at the beginning of the series.
Opening night.
You knew Middleton wasn't available at the beginning of this series. Why you got to wait for? Now, that's what we usually say.
Listen.
But I'm going to let you pass on that today. I'm going to let you pass. I'm going to let you
he's
pass.
just starting, so he wants to be
That's
right all the
He's a
time.
rookie. He's a
Opening
rookie.
night, they want to
He's a
go.
rookie.
After a few finals, he'll be making picks Game 1, ready to go, definitive. All right, guys, let's stay with this game. So a couple of